This is the His and Her Money Show, where we talk about managing money, marriage, and everything in between. Now, here are your hosts, Talaat and Tai McNeely.
Welcome back to the first episode in 2015 of the His and Her Money Show. Man, we're excited.
We are excited.
Brand new year.
Oh, yeah, we're
fired
ready.
up. We're ready to tackle this thing.
Let's do this. Start the year off right and finish it right.
And I think that with this new year, here's what we want. We want you guys to continue to hustle. We want you guys to continue to fight to get out of debt. But you know what's important, Ty?
Right.
I think that we all need to gain a level of contentment in life. I think that that's the biggest hindrance for people in this financial journey, is that we lack contentment.
Well, we have a couple here today, Mark and Lauren Grootman from markandlaureng.com, and they are going to discuss how they discovered the simpler life.
Yeah, they wrote an incredible article on their website, markandlaureng.com, that talked about how being broke is enough. I mean, the title kind of pulled me in, and as I start to read it, it was such an incredible story that we had to reach out to them and get them on to kind of share their story of gaining this level of contentment. You guys don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. Live on the line today, we have two very special guests. We're joined by Mark and Lauren Grootman from markandlaureng.com.
Hi, Mark and Lauren.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming on.
Now, you guys are a power couple. You got two websites you're running.
Yeah.
You got IamThatLady.com and markandlaureng.com. And before we get into you guys' story, could you first give us a little bit of background on yourself on the personal and professional side?
Yeah, so we've been married for 12 and a half years, and we have 4 kids, 9, 5, 3, and 1. So we're very busy as a couple and as parents, but then, we work professionally online. I've been working in the online space for about 4.5 years, and Mark quit his job.
Yeah, I was an actuary for over 10 years and just quit this January, so it's been almost a year. I mean, we'll get into what led us to that decision, I'm sure, later on in the interview, but so it's been almost a year that I've been working home in the online space with Lauren.
Yeah, so it's really fun, and we love to be together as a family. We love to do fun things together, and we just really desired for a simpler, happier life with our kids, to be able to raise them together all the time. And so it's been a huge blessing for us to be able to do that.
You recently made some bold family moves by Mark leaving his job and coming home, combined with the moving into a smaller home. Can you all tell us a little bit about what led to these decisions?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the reason that I left my job. Things just got crazy when we had our 4th child, and she was colicky, and Lauren had been running I'm That Lady for
3.5 years by myself.
3.5 years at that point, and it was just nuts, and things just came to a head, and we just knew that one of us had to leave our job. And at that point, we were kind of making about the same money, and we just realized that the lifestyle that it might afford us if I left and we decided to both work at home was just too good to leave on the table, so we had to give it a try.
Yeah, it was scary though. I remember we sat down and we talked about it, and I finally just had, a breaking point where I just said, Mark, I can't do this anymore. Like, my health was deteriorating. I was so stressed out, with trying to do it all and trying to do everything that I just said, would you be willing to even quit your job? Because this is something like an actuary. I don't know if you're familiar with what an actuary does, but they have to take like a ton of exams. So he had to take 8 actuary exams. So pretty much he had been taking exams our whole marriage to get this certification. And
I got one certification in 2007, and then I got the last one in 2011.
Yeah, so he had just gotten his last certification like a year before we made this decision. And that's a lot for me to ask him to do. I almost didn't want to ask him, but it definitely was a lifestyle choice that we wanted to run that simpler life, and yet we left half of our income on the table, in order to do that. So we moved into a smaller house to be able to not afford it. Like, we lived in our smaller house when he quit his job, but it was really a decision when we moved into this house 5 years ago that we wanted to move into a smaller, more affordable house so that we had options. Previous to that, we lived in a house that made us house poor, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but gosh, like, we just we're so thankful that we chose the smaller house because then it gave us the option to do this.
Those are some tough decisions. I mean, you guys cut your income in half, you cut the size of your home in half, but you all came together and you made the decision to do this. Now you're at that point where you said, okay, let's do it. Now, how did you move from an idea or a thought and put that plan into action? What were some strategic things that you all did to make your idea into a reality?
I think that the biggest thing was just being in a financial position and having the financial freedom to be able to do it. At that point, we had been debt free for, a couple of years, a year and a half or so. Yep. And we were able to put some money in savings. So we had some emergency money. So we kind of felt like we were in a financial position to be able to make a move like this.
Right. And because of all that hard work that we did to get out of debt, what
prepared us.
Yeah, what I talked about before, we never knew when we were getting out of debt that we were going to be doing this. But I had pretty much put, a half a year of income in savings, the year before we did it, not really knowing why, but just feeling like I needed to. So we had a half a year of money in a savings account so that if something happened or whatever. And then when he came home, we just really had to sit down and figure out, what works well. The first month, I think I was really frustrated with Mark because it's
you were frustrated.
We were both frustrated. We were both frustrated.
I was used to knowing what I was doing at work.
And he comes down and this online space is so vast and so there's so much going on. And I would just be like, Mark, just tweet it. And he'd be like, how do I even get on Twitter?
It's still hard to know how to get on Twitter.
So I would get so frustrated with him. And that whole first month, we just sat and looked at each other. I'm like, just do something. I don't want to tell you what to do all the time. It wasn't until we prayed and decided to start the other brand, Mark and Lauren G, that I feel like we really kind of fell into a rhythm. Because this is, the Mark and Lauren G is us together. It's our baby. It's not like him coming into I Am That Lady and trying to figure out how to fit in there. And there was actually a few articles that he wrote on I Am That Lady for me right when we first launched, when he first came home. And I did a reader survey trying to figure out, are people liking this or whatever? And there were actually a few people in the reader survey that said, tell Mark to stop writing.
Oh, man.
It was two.
He seems
they like me.
They liked him, but they didn't like what he was saying. Because he's very analytical.
Yeah. So I still write on I Am That Lady every once in a while, but I have to tailor it to your audience.
Yeah, exactly.
It took a while to kind of figure that out.
So we thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
So now we play to our strengths. He's very analytical and calculating, and he does all of our back end strategic tracking and all that kind of stuff. And I am a big picture visionary person. So we actually work very, very well together now. But it took us a little while to figure it out.
Did you both receive any pushback or ridicule from your family and friends about your decision to have Mark come home?
Family, no. I feel like our families were
good,
supportive. But it's funny that I did get a little pushback from a few friends. And it's just funny in hindsight thinking about it because the only people that gave me pushback were some guy friends of mine who have been miserable in their jobs for their entire professional careers.
Yeah. And they kept on saying, are you sure you want to do that?
You shouldn't be doing this. This is dumb. And I'm like, dude, you hate your job.
Yeah. There were a few of them who were like, Mark, I need to take you out for lunch. We need to talk about this. And we knew that we were making the right decision. We knew.
And I think that's so important for married couples is boundaries. You all made a plan and you all were good with the plan and you didn't let any outside forces, whether it be bloodlines or co-workers or anything, come in between the plan that you two made. Talk about, that couldn't have been easy. Those conversations with your coworkers had to be somewhat tempting, but how were you able to kind of withstand and stick to the plan?
Well, especially my bosses were just like,
what?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
But when you explain that it was a family decision, they reluctantly understood, and I still keep in contact with a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely we had to be firm in what we were doing, and it was something we had prayed about for a full year and a half before we actually made the decision.
It was, even though things came to a head, at that one point that we talked about earlier, but I think it was in the back of our minds that this would be something that it'd be cool to do someday.
Yeah.
But we just ended up jumping a lot sooner than we thought we would.
Exactly.
You all wrote an incredible article on both sites, I Am That Lady and Mark and Lauren G. And it was talking about Being Broke is Enough. And man, the concept was just so inspiring and so mind blowing to me. Here we are in a brand new year. 2015 just came in. And I think that we all need to adapt, an attitude of gratitude and contentment. Now, when you talked about the word broke, you weren't talking about it in the sense of, not having enough to meet your needs. Can you break down what you meant about how being broke is enough?
Yeah, so when we wrote that article, I actually wrote that probably a month after Mark quit his job, and I literally was crying when I was writing it because I was so thankful that we had this opportunity, and I just felt like, okay, I just need to write this while it's fresh on my heart. And so I wrote it, and basically it was that we need to forego all of the luxuries in our life right now to be able to, enjoy our children while they're young. And if that means that being broke is what we have to do, then we're willing to do that. And by being broke, we meant that we had enough money to pay our bills and pay the people that worked for us, because we have some virtual assistants that help us, and that was enough. We don't have the luxuries of a ton of extra money every month, but we're okay with that. And right. I think that when I wrote that, I was just floored with gratitude of that I'm willing to do and forego all of these luxuries in life to have a simpler, happier life. And we really have embraced that in our life, and really just challenge everybody around us that we don't need all this stuff, because I think stuff kind of drags you down and confuses
Absolutely.
you. And we just want people to just kind of forget about all the stuff that you think that you need, and really just realize that family and having a simpler life is really important.
It's so true. We talked about this before on our show. When we sold our first home, we sold it in 8 days. So we had to move in with Talaat's parents at the time and put all of our items in storage in pods. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? I found out that I was pregnant, had 2 small children, and here it is. We're moving into your parents' home. It was a 3-bedroom home, technically 2-bedroom, because one of the bedrooms was taken.
It was an office.
Yeah, it was an office. But we were so content. We were filled with so much joy for the 11 months that we were there. We didn't lack in anything. We didn't need to bring a lot of clothes, but pretty much just enough to get by for the week. And our children had a place to lay their heads. There was love in the home, and I think that was powerful. When I read your article, it started to make me tear up as well too. Like, wow, you get to hear your husband playing with the children, downstairs. Like, that's beauty. And that's what God wants us to have,
exactly.
And we believe that the biggest hindrance to financial freedom for most is that a lack of contentment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's so true. It's so true. And on our website, our tagline is the new American dream. And we really think that Americans have it backwards, because we were there. Years ago, we were there. We were keeping up with the Joneses. We were trying to have the nice cars and the nice house. We were trying all of that. And it didn't make us happy, and it put us into debt. And, that always wanting more and more and more, it just never fills you up.
Yeah, actually, I ran by I came across a quote the other day. I forget who said it, but it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor.
Nice.
That kind of sums it up right there. It's just, if you can break the cycle of just always wanting to, upgrade.
Yeah, we call it the upgrade cycle.
Yeah.
Of, when having that mentality of, well, when I pay off this car, then I'm going to go get this car. When I have another child, I'm going to go get this bigger house. Or when I make more money, I'm going to do this. And there's just constant upgrade cycle where you just say enough is enough. We're not going to upgrade anymore. We're going to enjoy what we have right now.
But it's hard, because you have to almost go counter culture to do that, because we're just hammered with, our media is just telling us that's the way we got to live.
Yeah. It's hard. And, we've been counterculture for a long time, as far as not doing a lot of things that people think you should do, like drive nice cars and all of that kind of stuff. So we kind of got used to it, but it was hard at first, to go against what everybody else is doing.
It's a brand new year. New Year's resolutions are in full effect as we speak. How can we in 2015 achieve this level of contentment that you all are experiencing? For the listeners out there, how can we get there?
I think the first step, and I'm speaking probably mostly to couples, and this is kind of what we did: sit down and just talk. We actually had a podcast we released last month called creating a financial bucket list. You just sit down and just talk with your partner about okay, what is actually important to us, and just come up with a list of things that they can be financial or non-financial. What is actually important to you? What do you value in life? And when you actually sit down and have that conversation, I feel like you're going to find that those things that you actually truly value might not be the things that you're spending your money on. And you're gonna say things like family, spending time together, really the important things in life.
And hopefully you say those things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I think most people would, though.
I think they would. And values are so connected to your money, and life and money are so intertwined with each other that when we're sitting down with somebody to work with them, a couple or whatever, we always are telling them about, sit down, create that financial bucket list, and then start, creating a budget around those goals and what you want to do together as a couple. And sometimes, especially because we speak a lot to couples, is there's so much like finger pointing and blame that by doing this financial bucket list, it almost like takes the blame out of it and just says, okay, this is what I want to do. Then you can kind of go forward a little bit easier than if you just sit down to talk about money and then all of a sudden the fingers come out, you start pointing at each other. So definitely recommend that. And, starting a budget, that's huge. Knowing where your money's going every month.
That's some sound advice for us to all take in. But you weren't always content. There was one point in you all's marriage where you all were $40,000 in debt, had a repossessed car, and you all were facing like $1,000 deficit in your income every single month. Mm-hmm. How did you make it from that place to where you are today financially?
A lot of hard work.
Tears and sweat.
A lot of tears and sweat and determination. But yeah, so in 2006, we bought and had a house made for us.
So, I mean, you're probably familiar with the housing market back then, but I think October 2006, which is when we got our house built, that was probably the worst month ever to have a house built for you.
Yeah, so we moved in, and within 2 months, we were already underwater on our mortgage.
Yeah.
The housing values just dropped like so much. And then I was working actually in a direct sales job at that time. And when we moved down there, it just totally crashed. And so all of my money and everything that I was making was completely gone, like within 2 months. And so we had bought the house on a 2 income, and all of a sudden I'm not working, and we were in all of this debt. And we had just been, I think like a lot of Americans, just like spending money, knowing that you're in debt, not really wanting to deal with it. I was using a lot of credit cards and racked up a ton of debt. Mark kind of knew about it, but was too afraid to talk to me about it. And then that whole pattern just continued to go and go and go for a few years.
And then we finally hit a point where we were at rock bottom, and we knew we had to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
And for the years that we were in that huge house that we were underwater in, we really couldn't make any progress on our debts at all because our expenses were just too much. It really wasn't until we moved out of that house, which we were able to sell via short sale, thankfully. We moved into an 800 square foot townhouse, and that's when we really started to be able to hammer away at the debt.
Yeah, so we downsized we moved from 3,200 square feet to 800. And
wow.
So I remember one of the guys from our church that was helping us move us, he looked at me and he said, "Do you guys think you're downsizing too much?" And it was at that point when I realized we had really gotten crazy.
Wow. It's funny though. I want to go back to this idea of contentment though, because you had mentioned what it was like when you had to move in with his parents for a few months there, and just the feeling of contentment you had. I vividly remember the first night we were in that little townhouse,
mm-hmm.
and I don't think that it was cold. It was November, and the utilities hadn't even been turned on yet.
Right, so we had like little space heaters in the kids' bedrooms.
It was freezing. We didn't have any furniture in there. We had one card table that we grabbed from my parents' house, and we went to Walmart and bought 2 coffee mugs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember sitting at that card table, drinking coffee in the evening after the kids were in bed, and we had nothing.
We were so happy though.
But this feeling of contentment was just amazing. It was like, oh my gosh, we don't live in this house anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like this weight had been lifted, and we were just thankful for the nothing that we had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was amazing because we had each other, and that was all that mattered.
Yep. So we sold everything that we had. All of our furniture except one couch. Mark is a drummer. He sold his drum set. And then we started really just kicking it into full gear with getting out of debt. And that, we just worked really, really hard when we moved back up to New York to just, in that tiny townhouse, we could really just hammer debt at $500 to $1,000 a month, and sometimes more, sometimes less. And just really, really work really hard to get out.
Now, Mark, when you were just speaking about, you were sitting at the card table, drinking your coffee, I felt that. It was like something came over my body.
I started feeling better about myself.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, that was like contentment. Did you hear it?
You can hear it.
Oh my gosh. Now, what type of impact did that have on your marriage? I know that your marriage had to take a turning point as well, for the better, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us what happened there?
Well, we wrote an article about talking about how all this financial issues actually saved our marriage. And we really feel that way, that, finances aren't always financial financial issues.
Right. I mean, they say that the number one cause of divorce is disagreements on finances. And, we kind of challenge that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we think that it's, finances are just the way that it's shown a lot of time. And, poor finances get the whole brunt of everybody's anger. But there were issues that we had to deal with that we weren't dealing with, that the financial issues that we had brought out and made us deal with. And so there was a lot of issues that were there. And thank God that we got through them. But we really had to work together. And, I was the main reason of a lot of our credit card debt. And I'm very open about that. But I also know that when I came clean and showed Mark, because I had a lot of them behind his back too, showed Mark the credit cards, bills that we had, that he just, we had a little argument, but then he forgave me and it was done and we never looked back. And that allowed me to be able to grow and to change. Whereas if he had been pointing fingers at me all the time, I don't know if I would have changed.
We have some people listening right now who are not content. They're stressed out. Mm-hmm. They feel overwhelmed by the amount of debt that they're in. What advice or words of encouragement could you share with them?
They're not alone. There's so many people that are in the same situation that they are in. And we were there. And I remember the feeling of living in that house, knowing that we didn't even have enough money to buy groceries some week, and having this huge pressure on my chest, like I couldn't breathe all the time. What changed was when Mark and I got on the same page. We stopped pointing fingers at each other and we just set a plan and worked together on the financial piece.
And it's funny. A lot of people describe the feeling that they have when they become debt free. From my own experience, and Lauren, I'm speaking for you too. When we became debt free, I think we just kind of shrugged our shoulders. We felt like we should be excited, but we weren't. And the reason that we weren't is because the biggest change that we had and the biggest sense of empowerment that we had in our fight against, this debt was this moment that we were sitting on a couch in that tiny apartment that we decided to just get serious about this and just start going crazy selling stuff and get out of debt. So that, even though we were still in $40,000 of debt at that point, just making the decision to do it and just that decision of being determined, that was the most significant and the most empowering point in our whole journey.
Right. So don't be so bogged down by the debt that you're paralyzed to make a change, that change, that decision to make the change is often the thing that's going to, spark that energy and that, decision to make those changes that you need to have.
You all did it. Mm-hmm. You climbed your way out, and you spoke earlier that this was really the catalyst that kind of led you to be able to both work together and work at home. Looking back, was the journey worth it?
Oh, 100.
Oh my gosh,
100%. 100%. And we're firm believers that, God puts you through certain things so that you can help others. And if the only reason that we were put through all of that to be on this earth to help other people get out of debt, I will take it, because I feel like it's such a epidemic going on right now that there's so many marriages struggling and there's so many people struggling that we need to help them. And I feel like that's our mission.
Yeah,
really.
I know you guys feel the same way.
Absolutely.
I guess, I was just going to say that even though we experienced this financial freedom and we made a lot of bold moves to get out of debt, we're kind of still living the same way. It's like, once you start living frugally, it just becomes this awesome lifestyle you don't want to give up.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I also wanted you all to mention and talk about, guys, they do this awesome thing every month. I believe is it the first Sunday of every month?
The last Sunday of every month.
The last Sunday of every month. They have a live budget night meeting.
And it's real.
It's no
script.
No.
Nope.
So can you all talk a little bit about that, where people can find that and watch it live?
Yeah, so over on markandlaureng.com/budget night, you can find our budget night. So the last Sunday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern time, we sit down in front of our computers and we record ourselves doing our own personal budget. And we do this because the number one question that we continue to get is, how do I even start? And so instead of writing a boring article about it, we're like, what? Which you did. And I much prefer the hangout that we do, but it's an opportunity for people to come and watch us. we have a lot of husband and wife sitting down watching and doing their budget along with us.
Yeah.
And we can really just show people, like, how do you do it? How do you talk about it? What do we do? How does it work? And, it's gotten rave reviews from people and they love it.
I mean, it's a great educational resource. I mean, because that is the common question, because not too many people are familiar with budgeting as a whole. And so to see a live in action budget being done by a couple, I mean, everybody should tune in. We'll put a link to that in the show notes so everybody can join in. And it just really, it leaves no excuse not to budget after watching Mark and Lauren go live with it.
And just, and we don't have it all together. I mean,
that's the best part, though.
I'd love to be, saving more for retirement, and we plan to next year. But it's
this month we didn't even know what we were going to be talking about. Like, Mark did all the numbers, and one of the things also that's cool about it is because we have on our website, we developed these amazing like budgeting tools that you can use, and because when people sign up to use those, then we give them like a live walkthrough of what it looks like, how to use them and all that. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1 thing that you can come and see a live demonstration of what you've signed up for and get to see us act like crazy people on TV.
Are there some additional current resources or some upcoming ones that you want the audience to know about?
Pretty much the tools that we have. We have our Simpler, Happier Life podcast, and then the budget night are really kind of the things that we really love to do on there. Always emailing with people back and forth, and hopefully in the future we plan to develop an e-course to kind of walk people through it. But we haven't even really started working on that yet. But it's in our mind of a goal.
It is. But,
in the future.
Like you said, running 2 websites is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Now, if people want to stay connected to you guys, where can they find you?
Well, you can find us at markandlaureng.com and IamThatLady.com. We're at Twitter at markandlaureng, I am that lady on Twitter. Facebook. And then we have Facebook accounts for both as well, and Pinterest. You can find us on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever you want.
I only know how to use like half those social media sites. So...
We've been talking with Mark and Lauren Groupman from markandlaureng.com and IamThatLady.com. Thanks so much for taking time out to come on the show today.
Thank you, guys. We really appreciate
it. Thank you.
Man, did you hear the peace in their voice?
But wait a minute. When Mark said that they had a card table and the only thing that they went to Walmart to go get were 2 mugs for their coffee.
Yeah.
Like, that's all they needed to be happy and content.
It was like at that moment
they didn't say they had to go get a flat screen television. No. They didn't say that they had to go get this decked out, leather couch set.
Mm-hmm. It was after they got rid of the big things, the big material items in their life, that they actually achieved that level of contentment. And because of that, their life is completely different. It's not about how much money you make.
It's not.
It's about how you feel, how you view money, and how you spend it. So, man, I hope you guys are ready, man, for this new year, that you have the desire now to kind of rethink things, put things in its proper perspective, in its proper order, man. Let's fight for this contentment in our hearts.
And like Mark and Lauren said, go and make your financial bucket list. If you have a husband or wife, sit down with your husband or wife today.
It's a perfect time.
And if you don't have a spouse, sit down with yourself, find you an accountability partner, and make your financial bucket list.
It's 2015. Let's set some goals for ourselves.
That's right.
Let's give ourselves a blueprint of success. Let's
we don't
write
have
it down.
to live like other people, or we don't have to worry about what people will think about us if I don't have this car, or if I'm not wearing this shirt, or have this purse or this handbag. It doesn't matter.
Write it down. By the time we get to December 31st, 2015, what do you want your financial picture to look like? What do you want your family picture to look like? What do you want your spiritual picture to look like? Write it down.
And I sure hope it's going to look a lot simpler and happier, right?
Man, that is the truth. Here it is. No matter where you are on the road to financial freedom, the key is to start now
and finish strong.
Thanks for tuning in to the His and Her Money Show. For more information on how to win with your finances, be sure to visit www.hisandhermoney.com.